Good morning, everybody. Hope everybody is doing well. It's about 6:45 on July 9th, and it's Tuesday. And I'm been busy as a cat on a hot tin roof, covering up, you know what. Anyway, lots of things going on, and really having a good time. Working. I'm going to shift gears a little bit and tell you when I first started researching hydrogen. And as a chemist, you just think, well, I'll start off with all the elements and see what they do. And I'm still hung on hydrogen since 1998. And finding all the things of hydrogen that it can do, working with it, and watching other people's videos. A lot of the devices that they had, or they tell us that we had a couple of hundred years ago in the rural days, supposedly when everything was supposed to be cowboys and Indians and stuff like that. In America, and I ran across, history, studying these devices, and being the engineer that I am, seeing things to work. The powers that be gave us secrets right there in plain sight. And anyway, I'm going to talk to you about Benjamin Franklin. He was a character. He really was. He sold lightning rods, and he was a good salesman. And he figured out a device to make lightning strike within 50 feet of wherever he set his device up. And so anyway, I'm not going to show you the device. It's so dadgum simple. When I set it up in the pasture, it blew one of my trees up, and then I said, okay, that can't be a fluke. So went to another pasture, and the tallest area that was there got struck by lightning. No problem with that. And so third time, had another guy that was working with a hydrogen on demand thing, and he lived out in the pasture. And, I did share it with him, and he goes, how did you figure that out after lightning struck a tree that he set it up next to? And I said, well, my old buddy Benjamin Franklin figured it out for us. And the only thing is, he wouldn't tell you in plain sight what it was. You had to be a mathematician to figure it out. However, I can tell you, as I started working out different devices, you have to kind of remember the glass was fairly easy to produce and mold and things. And as I kept doing the layouts from the math I was getting, I would get all these weird shapes, and I go, and that's the size of it too. Okay. And being in the restaurant supply business, I was in the restaurant supply business based out of Longview, Texas, from 1981 till I retired from the restaurant supply business to sell aircraft for Cessna when they started manufacturing single-engine piston planes. But I sold bar glasses as part of the line of pots, pans, ladles, spoons, knives, forks, spoons, dishers, walk-in coolers, walk-in ovens, vent hoods, fire systems, ice machines, dish tables, stainless steel tables, every kind of imaginable thing that there can be. See, I can remember some of that stuff that I used to. I don't always talk slow, but I used to talk really fast. And I used to have all that stuff really memorized. I'm a good old country boy, though. Okay. So anyway, I was doing a layout off of good old Benjamin Franklin for his lightning attractor. And what he'd do, he'd rig what he called thunder houses, house on the outskirts of town that needed to go away anyway. And his demonstration was a house that was unprotected by lightning rods. Okay. Now, since then, I've learned that lightning rods weren't really lightning rods. Back in the day, they used what's called arc lighting, and it was so bright it was light pollution, and they literally knew the frequencies and everything to set up light for areas through what we know as lightning rods, but they really weren't. But anyway, he sold lightning rods and changed technology up. And like I said, when I took his device and started figuring it out, what was going on, it looked like a bar glass. And so one of the things that I kind of wanted to point out is there's different shapes that you'll see, especially if you work with math and if you do layouts. And what's odd about it, the glass to be there. And so I actually believe what happened was the science came before the bar glass did. And somebody said, hey, that'd be kind of nice to take a drink out of, and went that route. So anyway, that's some true things that I believe. Can't prove it, but I can tell you what, a lot of layouts I did look just like bar glasses, odd shaped bar glasses, margarita glasses. So a lot of things that you see in science and technology in the old days is based off that. And, it's based off of resonance and the different shapes of what they were trying to do. But kind of a thing of interest. You can do your own research, do your own layout, see what I found. Well, one of the things that I want to clue you guys in on is, again, the protractor. Being the good carpenter that I am, I learned to use a framing square, everything on that framing square. And that's the reason I like a slide rule, because once I know what my setup is, it's right there for me. I don't have to do any thinking. I don't have to do the math. The math is already done for me in the layout. And that's what I want to clue you in, what goes in and when you're looking at things. This is about the Bedini, believe it or not, and I'm getting ready to shift gears to another style of motor. It's still pretty much a Bedini, but it's the Robert Adams motor. And the Figuera, Clemente Figuera, when he did his work, I think all those guys had a little bit of advantage. The only thing, they didn't have the switches that we have today. They use spark gaps. Now, I still like spark gaps, and I still like commutators. Okay, with commutators, you can adjust the dwell of your input side and your output side. And a little bit more on my research of what I found was, I want to tell you another story about at the end of World War II, there were two soldiers, and they went into a German bar. It was a cleanup operation, and they went to the German barn, and there was this emergency generator running, and the lights were running. And so anyway, it was just sitting there ticking away, and they couldn't find a power source to it. And so the lights were on, and anyway, they got it stopped, and the John Bedini reverse engineered it. I'm very certain he did. There's been several that's reproduced it, but it took me 3 years to see what was going on with that unit, and it was by research. One of the things is, I'm pretty experienced boat mechanic, and I worked on diesel trucks. I'm diesel certified. I've done everything to with engines, basically from 1 horsepower to 1,000 horsepower and twin turbochargers, and the course, y'all know my two-stroke background and why I love two-stroke motors. But I work on 4 strokes, fuel injection, the whole 9 yards. But if I'd have known what I know now, I'd have been more in the electric field, electric motor field. My background, I started off in petroleum engineering, switched over to mechanical engineering, and spent most of my life in chemical engineering. And now I'm having fun with electrical engineering. And so all those things I did use in the restaurant supply business. We developed our own chemical line for janitorial supplies, the dishwasher chemicals, and the laundry chemicals. And we developed our own floor wax, and I was a big integral part of that. And then when I went out on my own, I made up my own chemical. And so gives you a little background of where I'm coming from. The point that I wanted to make about the protractor and degrees is magnets. Everybody gets hung either with a round coil. Very few people there are some exceptions out there that really get off and understand the magnet. So if you have your magnet set, like what that is, actually your coil the core should be a reflection of your magnet, because that's what you're doing. You're reflecting back and forth, working with these type energies. And so if you're running a magnet that's rectangular like this, then your coil should match it. So all you got to do is take a piece of wood or whatever, make your bobbin that same size, and then you can make your cores and use different cores. So I want to give you a heads up on that. Patrick Kelly has a real good video with his free energy devices, and pretty good study of the Robert Adams motor. And he goes into how to test the magnet strengths. You don't have to necessarily, for this type of energy, use neodymium magnets. The rotor that I have being made up for me is aluminum, and it's machine piece, balanced, and my coils will match it. But I wanted to show you something that's kind of interesting. Okay, most people, they measure. They go, okay, that's I can't really see it in this light. I have to turn it on, turn my light up. But they would go, well, that's 1 3/4 inches. Okay. And actually, when you're dealing with electricity and magnetism, everything is based on pi and phi, is my findings. Okay. And so one of the things that you need to check is a layout, and put your protractor on it and lay it out like that. Okay. The math is already done for you in degrees. And a lot of times when you buy something right off the shelf, somebody else had something in mind based on technology I had found. And this magnet, just came from Harbor Freight, just a inexpensive craft magnet. But a lot of times there's a reason that they'll have something packaged like that, and it just happens to work out that the degrees, when you lay it out, is 35 degrees in length. A lot of people don't look at it like that, but that's true. And then it's 16 degrees apart. And then if you stack them, it's 15 degrees. Each magnet is about 7.5 degrees. So it's kind of interesting when you do your layouts just with a set of magnets off the protractor, believe it or not. And this is what I wanted to show you. This is just 360 degrees, just like you have on a compass rose, okay? And all I did was I marked off 120 degree spot. Now, as I demonstrated, even though these magnets are 120 degrees apart, when you put the compass up there, it'll spin one rotation in that 120 degrees. So you have 360 degrees rotating in a 120 degree circle, okay? So your compass, when it's ticking slowly enough, for one rotation of your wheel, the compass will spin 3 times, okay? So now we're working with different types of metals and things, and you know, I started off personally with a steel bicycle wheel, a small one. I'll bring it out one day and show you, and had very good results off that. My second Bedini wheel is a plastic wheel, and I've learned about that. And this wheel is going to be aluminum, based primarily on the design that it's being fabricated by my machinist. And if you need to know who that machinist is, just drop me a line in the comments and get an email, and I'll hook you up with the machinist. Also, I have a winder that's been winding motors for 45 years, and they can do it perfect. Okay, I'm not interested in setting up a business off of this. I have my own things. You know, I just want to help people that want to work in this industry. Anyway, laid out my 120 degree marks, and I did 4 magnets just on the layout. Remember, you know, build a model. You know, the drawing is your first paper model. It's not in 3D, but the next step is going to be the width of that magnet, so you can get an idea how wide that's going to be, because that's going to reflect what that is, and then the coils be based off this same telemetry. What's interesting, okay, even though that's marked out that way, when I do this in aluminum, like I said, this is 120 degree apart, and that lines up right on the 60 degree mark when you run it across. Okay, so I just wanted to give you a heads up of something that I found based on the protractor and those type telemetries, that it, you know, a lot of guys that and you know, you can go back to old books and stuff, and once you kind of get understanding and true pictures of that, they knew this stuff inherently, and they didn't do all the math in their head. They hired people that were mathematicians to work out those things and give you all the mathematical theory and everything. I just happened to be one of the stupid ones that was indoctrinated enough to learn that shit and work those different principles out and lay it out. Okay, and I love doing it, but you know, what a waste of time. If I'd just been clued into the basics of how to figure what you're doing with electricity, I'd have been, you know, three or 4 years ahead of where I am now. Let me get a sip of coffee here. Oh, been busy. Got a buddy of mine got bit by a brown recluse spider right on the back of his head up here, and they asked me to carry him to the hospital because he was kind of getting chalky and stuff. Just a side note. And anyway, got him to the hospital and talked to the doctor and made sure he's going to get the right kind of care. So they went ahead and did a 4-square lance of that bite. It was really soupy, and anyway, had to change the dressing for him last night. And I used to do that stuff all the time, but that's a whole nother story. But I want you to pray for my buddy. I'm not going to give any names or anything, but It's very serious. One of my bosses, it was a wound care technician, wound care surgical technician like myself. He was on his way from Dallas area, DFW area, back to Georgia. And anyway, he was at a hotel and got bit on the temple. And very serious. They had to go through the temple and scrape all the way up to his brain to the poison. If you ever do get bit by a brown recluse spider, bleach is one of the first aids to do that. It kills the venom pretty good if it's topical, but it starts to burn through the human flesh, and it's brown recluse spider bite. Normally they hang around wood and stuff, but very serious bite, especially in the head area. And I've seen people have big old plugs, they end up coming out from the brown recluse spider. So just a heads up on brown recluses, but pray for Bill's buddy. Well, anyway, getting back to the Figuera, I have found Bedini and Figuera. I think a lot of people are working off this 1D design, and I suspect, I don't know, but I suspect that this is actually a round coil with resistive wire on it. Okay. And so it makes sense to me that those taps with telemetry pretty well mirror the spark gap. And just a heads up for you guys that are working with this technology. I've also found that these magnets going through the center, which is the output side, you have input side here, input side here, and the wave on that is that people are experimenting with different telemetries as far as the winding. It makes sense to me if you want to avoid Lenz's law for the energy to be phased through your pickup coil differently, then you can rephase it where you want to, and that way you avoid Lenz's law. So just another tip in that area. There are other things going on there, but like I've explained, of my belief with the PMH is that the line of force between the positive and the positive and negative, between the north and the south, in the center are those acceleration lines. And to me, in that dimension that it goes to on the Planck level, there's a vibration happening right there that you can lever into, and that's what makes the PMH work. When you stack magnets like that 4 high, you have different lines of force. I don't have them right here. I'm in the trunk of my car, but anyway, you can see where I'm going on that side. So I just wanted to give you a heads up that some of the work that's being done with Figuera, Bedini, Robert Adams, it's based on the same thing, but don't just get hung up, in my opinion, on round coils. Okay, the different lines of force, winding things. There's so many configurations to be looked at, and but I can tell you that, for a generator to operate, there's a reason that in seconds that's done. I mean, it's based off of 369. And so when you set up a magnetic field with coils, the reason that you need to go to 34, 35, 3600 RPM to generate really usable electricity, is because if you just do the math and back it out, revolutions per minute, boom, 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 it just all backs out and makes a mirror what's there to be harvested. And so I had planned to be further ahead on hooking up my new Bedini configuration. I'm really excited about my tri-fiber coil with the 1-layer wrap on the bottom for the trigger, and it's 5 layers high. And then, of course, doing the other configurations in my style with my particular wheel. I think we're going to find some interesting things there. So anyway, I hope that helps you. I know there's still a lot of people that are working with the Gerard Moore and stuff, and I love this thing. And have done a lot of experimentation with that, and built up different ways to trigger it. And the ones that are really built, you tap them, and that bell keeps on ringing. They don't go thud; it goes. And so a whole lot of the things that make motors better is when they're built and constructed properly, and they ring. And the longer they ring, the better it is. As you train your inductors or your ferromagnetic cores or whatever you're using as a PMH, you're loosening that spot, and it's got a memory. And when you loosen that inertia spot within that bubble and allow that magnetic bubble to resonate and ring, then you get a lot more miles for your buck on your Q factors. And so anyway, I believe it with all my heart that that's all that we're really learning to do. Is we're going to train magnets. One of the magnets that's very successful in this is the barium ferro magnet, and slightly radioactive, but you can still purchase them, I understand. And like I said, with that type technology, they learned how to run the right type frequencies, duration of spark or spark gap to train those magnets and their ferrous materials to automatically resonate. I love parametric oscillation. I think the Wix machine was the first machine that I heard, it go into parametric oscillation. And like I said, in our world, most of last 150, 200 years, most anything manufactured to be hooked to mains power avoided that open system of parametric oscillation and bringing transient energies in. And here we are, we're wanting to bring them back. And the transient energy from parametric oscillation is really cool stuff. And as we learn to handle that, there's some surprising small devices working with that. Some people call it 0 point energy, but it's really not 0 point. It's just frequency out of phase. And then when you learn to phase it back, it really gets exciting. So I hope you guys are having a blessed week. I know I have been working hard again. Pray for my buddy that got bit by the brown Recluse, pray for each other. Be safe. And if you're not having fun, like we are, just you need to. So signing off, and just enjoy your rest of your week. We'll see you soon.